regimen. So tonight we're happy to have one of my dearest friends, Grace Choy from Austin, Texas, to share with us the benefit of nitric oxide. Yes, we're going to talk about our beloved Nitro Xtreme and Nitro FX and what it does for our health. Grace is a research scientist and a lecturer at University of Texas, Austin. Please welcome Dr. Grace Choy.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see my screen? Awesome. Okay, so my name is Grace and I'm a research scientist, and I actually do part-time research at a lab at the University of Texas at Austin. I'm not teaching anymore, thank goodness, because I wouldn't want to do virtual online lessons every day. But my research is actually focusing on plants and how they make proteins. Well, when I first became a business partner, because of my science background, Catherine assigned me a task to do some research on nitric oxide, and also the noni plant, which is where our Nitro FX and Nitro Xtreme is extracted from. I found that just this brief research that I did online was able to increase my understanding of how nitric oxide worked in the body. And on top of that, because of my understanding, it also increased my belief in the product. And it's my hope that after this presentation, your understanding will also improve and that your belief will also be increased in our products. So nitric oxide is a very important molecule in our body. It was actually named the molecule of the year by the Science Journal in 1992. And Science Journal is one of the top journals in the research science community. And to be named the molecule of the year is a pretty big deal. So it's a gas molecule that consists of one nitrogen and one oxygen element. And the discovery of this gas molecule and how it functions in the body won 3 researchers, 2 pharmacologists and 1 doctor, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine. So as a science nerd, I like to, study about how, these researchers discovered nitric oxide. And it's actually really interesting because all 3 researchers found parts of the puzzle. And it wasn't until all the parts of the puzzle were put together that they figured out, oh, wow, so this is the power of nitric oxide. So the first researcher on the left, Dr. Furchtgott, he actually did studies on a drug that allows blood vessels to dilate. This drug is called acetylcholine. And when he studied this drug, he noted that certain cells lining the blood vessel, if you look at the picture of the blood vessel on the bottom of the slide, the light pink layer on the innermost part of the vessel, that's the endothelial layer or endothelial cells. And he noted that if that layer of cells is gone, the drug can't cause the blood vessels to dilate. So it's very important. And he noted that probably a factor is being released by this endothelial cell lining, but he doesn't know what the factor is. So Dr. Murat comes into the picture, and he was actually studying a different drug and how it helps with blood vessel dilation. He was studying nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin, he showed, was able to release nitric oxide, and that in turn relaxes blood vessels. But at that time, it's a very novel idea. How can a gas like nitric oxide, which has a very short lifespan, regulate important cellular functions? And hormones can even act through this gas molecule. So nobody really believed him until Dr. Ignario came by, and he actually identified that the factor that Dr. Furchtgott proposed was actually nitric oxide, because he showed that that factor has exactly the same properties as nitric oxide. And he also showed that nitric oxide can be produced by blood vessels, and it controls the flow of blood by signaling vessels to expand and contract. So with their discovery, they all three won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 1998. So let's take a look at this video that gives us a bit more visual how nitric oxide helps in our body.
Nitric oxide is naturally made in our bodies. A Nobel Prize was awarded for the discovery that nitric oxide plays a significant role in the cardiovascular system. This discovery revealed nitric oxide as a vasodilator, helping to reduce blood pressure and increase oxygen in the blood. Produced by the lining of the blood vessels, known as the endothelium, nitric oxide acts as a messenger molecule, telling blood vessels to widen or dilate, and contract or relax, like an elastic band. With enough nitric oxide, blood vessels can relax and widen, allowing blood to flow from and to the heart. As we age, we produce less nitric oxide. This can cause the cardiovascular system to become less elastic, which can reduce the flow of oxygenated blood to vital organs. This is the reason it's important to have an active lifestyle and a diet that's rich in nitrates, which bioconvert to nitric oxide and may help maintain normal blood pressure levels and a healthy cardiovascular system.
So as you can see, nitric oxide is very important in our body, and I found this diagram that kind of breaks it down to different systems that it helps in our body. So first, if you look at the top left, cardiovascular system. It's very important for cardiovascular health because it helps with blood circulation. If it helps with blood circulation, it also helps with oxygen circulation, and circulation to the heart, which is the most important muscle in our body, is very important for heart health, right? So if you have improved circulation, you're going to have improved heart health. And with improved heart health, you have better cardiovascular health. Respiratory health. It helps with oxygen circulation, not just by improving blood circulation. It also has been shown to help oxygen release from the protein that binds oxygen, which is hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is found in our red blood cells, and it's the protein that transports oxygen from the lungs and releases it wherever we need in the body. Well, nitric oxide helps with the release of that oxygen. So it helps with oxygen circulation. And with more oxygen to different parts of your body, your metabolism increases because oxygen is very important for respiration. Respiration is the natural process of energy production in our cells. And all cells need energy to do the function that it needs. And that leads us to cell proliferation. When cells have more oxygen, they can respirate better. They are more healthy as well. So there's reduced cell death. Let's talk about immunology. So you can think about the blood vessel like a highway, right? When you have rush hour traffic, it's really congested. You know, cars can't travel as fast, right? So similar, if your blood vessels are constricted, you don't have as much flow of your blood. So blood flows slower. Well, same for immune cells and inflammatory agents. So the immune system can produce inflammatory agents whenever, you know, there's a point of wound, right? If you have inflammation somewhere and your blood vessels are not really dilated or circulation is not as well, your inflammatory agents will stay there and cause more inflammation, right? When you have better circulation, you can imagine that those inflammatory agents can flow away from the site of inflammation much faster. Same for immune cells. If you have a highway that's congested, you have an accident, ambulances take longer to get to the site of accident, right? If you have a free flow highway, the ambulance can get to the accident site much faster. So if you have a site of infection, if your blood flow is flowing very well, you're gonna have your immune system or immune cells be able to get to the site of infection much faster and be able to attack the foreign pathogens. Not only that, there has been research showing that immune cells can secrete nitric oxide as an important signaling molecule. So in this next slide, I have a paper that was published in 2005, right after the SARS epidemic. These researchers found that nitric oxide can inhibit the replication cycle of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus. So the SARS coronavirus is very similar to COVID-19 coronavirus. If you read some of the news articles, they actually call the COVID-19 coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, which is a different version of SARS coronavirus. Well, in this paper, the authors treated cells that were infected with the SARS virus. They treated them with a chemical that can bioconvert into nitric oxide. And when they do that, they found that the cells produce less viral protein and gave rise to less viral particles. That's a very significant result. And they wanted to see, okay, is this physiological? Can cells produce nitric oxide as well? So they tested by the same cells, they added this cytokine called interferon gamma, and it's known in the body that interferon gamma can cause cells to produce nitric oxide. And they showed that when they added interferon gamma and then they infected the cells with SARS coronavirus, that those cells indeed produce nitric oxide at a higher level and were able to decrease viral particles from those infected cells. So if nitric oxide levels can actually prevent viral replication, you can imagine when we take Nitro FX or Nitro Xtreme, we're increasing the nitric oxide levels in our body, right? If there's any cells that are infected with viral, with the coronavirus, you can imagine that the nitric oxide levels will help us prevent those cells from producing more viral particles. With less viral particles, you should have less severe symptoms, right? Usually when your symptoms get bad, that's because your body is like too many cells are infected with the virus and you're producing too much viral particles. I'm not a doctor, maybe Dr. Helen or Dr. Eric or Dr. P can help, like, you know, confirm, you know, what I'm thinking that makes sense in my head, but that's what I think it is helpful. So I think with us taking Nitro FX and Nitro Xtreme, it's going to really boost our immune system against the current COVID-19 pandemic. An interesting side note, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the news, like for COVID-19, they have been finding that there is a phenomena where patients actually have spontaneous blood clotting symptoms, like, you know, throughout the body, in the lungs, you know, in their blood vessels. And I was doing some studies about tocotrienol, which is a the potent vitamin E that is in our sunset component. And tocotrienol is actually prevents platelet aggregation, which means that it helps with blood clotting. It prevents blood clotting. So for us, when we're taking Nitro FX and Nitro Xtreme plus sunset, you're actually boosting your body on both ends. You're gonna prevent blood clotting and you're also targeting those viral infected cells. Okay, let's go back to the diagram. Let's look at the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system controls your smooth muscles. So involuntary smooth muscles are what controls our blood vessels, our gastrointestinal system, our respiratory system, our urinary tract system. So nitric oxide has been shown to leave these smooth muscles in a relaxed state, which means that they can function the best in their relaxed state. For central nervous system, it helps promote circulation to nerves, and that improves nerve health and therefore improves pain management. The GI tract, increased blood circulation will help with nutrient absorption and also metabolism, enhanced metabolism. But last but not least, because nitric oxide is a vasodilator, it can also help improve sexual health. So as you can see from the video that I showed you earlier, nitric oxide is naturally produced in our body. We actually have 3 different enzymes. They're called nitric oxide synthase, and they can convert a amino acid called L-arginine into L-citrulline and nitric oxide. And but the levels of nitric oxide that we produce in our body declines with age. So essentially, when you reach the age of 40, you are probably producing half as much nitric oxide as you were producing at the age of 20. and it just goes downhill from there. So you can imagine, like, that's why we start having, you know, hypertension, cardiovascular problems as we age, is because possibly because we're having decreased nitric oxide levels. Well, how do we supplement nitric oxide? We can take nitrate rich foods in our like consume them so that we can produce more nitric oxide in our bodies. Well, when we ingest nitrates, okay, nitrates is actually the nitrogen with 3 oxygen molecules, as you can see from the pathway on the bottom right. The top molecule, NO3, that's nitrates. Nitrates can be reduced to nitrites, and that occurs in our mouth with the bacterial enzymes in our saliva. So that's why when, you know, we tell you if you eat Nitro and Nitro Xtreme, you want to put it in your mouth for like 45 seconds to a minute. That allows the bacterial enzymes in our saliva to break the nitrates into nitrites. Then when you swallow it into your stomach, the stomach acids converts nitrites into nitric oxide. And nitric oxide, as I mentioned, is a gas molecule that is has a very short lifespan in the body. However, it acts as a signaling molecule. So because it's a signaling molecule, when it's absorbed into the cell, it triggers different signaling pathways. And when it triggers the signaling pathways, the cells propagate the signal from one cell to another. So even though with a short lifespan, it can have long-lasting effects. So what's the connection between nitric oxide and Nitro Xtreme or Nitro FX? That's one thing that kind of skimming through all the research papers that I've read, there's very little like papers that talk about the noni plant extract and how if it produces nitric oxide. Okay, but Kyani actually has this on their Kyani Science link. I have the link on the bottom of this slide, and they actually hired an independent research lab to do this study where they wanted to show that Nitro Xtreme can actually produce nitric oxide in human aortic endothelial cells. So what are these cells? These are like cells that mimic the blood circulatory system. And you can grow these cells in the lab on tissue culture plates, and they grow them, and then they either treated it with a negative control that's just, you know, growth media, or they treated it with Nitro Xtreme, and that's the green bar on this bar graph, or they treated it with a positive control, which is morphine, and morphine has is well known to produce nitric oxide in the body. So they wanted to compare these 3 things and see if Nitro Xtreme can actually increase nitric oxide levels after treating the cells with it. So they incubated the cells for 5 minutes with the 3 different conditions, and then they sampled the media to determine the nitric oxide levels. And as you can see from this bar graph, when they added morphine at 0.3 micromolar concentration, that's the 3rd bar from the top, morphine can produce 3 times more nitric oxide than the control, just media alone. Nitro Xtreme acts similarly as morphine, and it actually produces 2.76 times the level of control in this study. So they conclude that Nitro Xtreme is actually able to produce nitric oxide in our bodies when we consume it. And I find that this is a very important connection to nitric oxide for the Nitro Xtreme and Nitro FX products. If that's pretty much the end of my talk on nitric oxide, and I actually have a lot more to say about Nitro Xtreme and Nitro, or the plant that we extract from, which is the noni plant. And there's actually a lot of research done on how noni helps with different health issues in our body. And the more I research, the more excited I am about this product. So I hope that when I have a chance to share it with you guys, you will share my enthusiasm as well. But yeah, so that's the next part. So I'm gonna hand it back to Catherine.
Thank you so much, Grace, for your sharing. You know, we learned that proper levels of nitric oxide in your body is crucial for optimal health. And tonight we learned that it may even help, you know, keep us safe from this COVID-19 by inhibiting the replication of SARS coronavirus. So thank you so much for this. Come back again next week for part 2.